existence.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this live stream today, where we are going to be discussing the topic of artificial intelligence, specifically how it relates to audio and especially post-production audio. But we will talk about AI being used in music. It's already being used. And we'll also probably cover just kind of the general threat, I guess you want to call it, of artificial intelligence in most creative aspects of life, like filmmaking, digital artwork. There's so many uses for it. In so many ways, it's already being used, and it can be a little bit scary. I figured this was a good topic because we've talked a bit about different, uses of AI, specifically with like dialogue cleanup, and there's even starting to be some sound effects tools that are coming out that use AI, and it can be really scary for people, especially people who maybe aren't so close to retirement. The old heads, the veterans, the people who've put their time in, they have an established career, they have a lot of credits, they have probably a house, they have some wealth built up. They are not concerned about AI because, in 5 years they're going to be sipping Mai Tais on the beach, which is fine. Good for them. They put their time in. I totally respect that. But for the rest of us, the people who are maybe mid-career or especially early career, we are going to have to learn how to exist in a world where AI is being used every day and where AI is kind of a threat to replace us, especially some of the more technical, tedious type of things that we do. AI is already being used to phase out aspects of that. So we're going to discuss that in detail. We're also going to hopefully get some other people on the stream other than just me blabbing for an hour. So I have in our members only Discord, I have a Video Ninja link and I've shared the password. So I'm going to kind of check in and see if anybody's wanting to come on the stream. And we'll just keep that to members because, they're supporting the channel and it's kind of a way to feature them. So feel free to, if you're a member, jump on, and pump up your own website or the company you work for or whatever you want to share. And we'll just have a good conversation about AI. So let's see, what else could Cedar's giving me an affiliate link, so there's that. That's a way you can support the channel. And then a big project I'm taking on right now is actually creating some online courses. So if you go on my website, forlowdigital.com, you can see I've added a courses tab. The only course I have right now is an intro to audio post, and it's module 1. But I am preparing a huge, let me see if I can find this. This is an outline of the dialogue series I'm going to do. It's going to be 10 lessons. It's going to be hours of work, and it's going to go in super detail of basically all the skills you need to become a professional dialogue editor from, point A all the way to point B, which is delivering a nice, smooth edited dialogue session. And I'm going to do that for sound effects and Foley and mixing too, but dialogue is it's my bread and butter, and it's also probably the least understood out of all audio posts. So after the intro to audio post, which is on my website, I'm going to do a dialogue editing boot camp that's going to be massive. So it's going to take me a while. But that's not our topic today. Today, our topic is artificial intelligence. And I got a little outline because there's a lot to cover. And we kind of covered a little bit of the overview of AI it's there. And don't keep your head in the sand on AI because if you do, the world is going to pass you by. To me, it's kind of like when electricity came out or the internet or gasoline engines or the Industrial Revolution. There's these kind of inflection points in human history where something big has shifted. And AI is one of those. I don't think AI is just a flash in the pan it's like a little fad that's going to die out. It's already being used. It's already useful. It's already saving people money, making people money. And so to laugh it off and say, well, there's the Will Smith eating spaghetti video like that people shared, a year or two ago. Look how far it's come in just a couple years. We've gone from this laughable, cartoony, really kind of creepy video to stuff that is being shared on social media that looks pretty damn realistic. It looks pretty good. So if we've come that far in the short, couple years that AI has entered into kind of the lexicon of people's thought, imagine where it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. It's kind of scary, but this stream is not about being afraid. Like you guys probably know, I'm not a nervous, anxious, scared person, very calm. And I like being able to pivot and handle things and have stuff thrown at me because that's how you grow. So we're going to talk about how you can use AI, how you can kind of stay on top of the wave instead of being left behind, or worse yet, washed under the waves and drown in a sea of change, because the sea is changing. We've got some stuff in our chat here, some questions I'll cover. Paul is asking, should I be scared of AI? What is Hollywood saying? Paul, I don't think you need to be scared of AI. I think you need to be aware of it. I think you need to look at it. Like if there was a storm coming and you had a farm to protect and you had like animals to bring in and crops and everything, like you wouldn't just sit in your house and say, well, I guess it's fine. You would look at the storm and you'd figure out, well, what steps do I need to take to protect what I have? That is what you need to do, is like, be aware, keep on top of things, but don't be afraid of them, because humans are so resilient and we're going to be able to figure out how to use this stuff. So good question. We got Brandon in the chat. Sasha, do you always stream at the same time? Yes, I do, Sasha. Like the transition from analog to Pro Tools, that's what Steven says. Exactly. People, when Pro Tools came out, it was like, you're going to edit and mix on a computer. Nope, we use tape. We cut tape. We're on 1/4 inch. We're on 2-inch. We're on mag. Like there was a huge pushback. Think of also the change in filmmaking from film to digital. When red cameras came out, there was, they were noisy and you had to light them differently than film cameras, and they were expensive. And people thought, well, yeah, we're going to stick with 35 millimeter. Thank you very much. Are people still shooting on 35? Yes. Some people, they like film. There's benefits to the film. They still shoot on film. But most productions are using digital cameras. They're using Alexas and stuff like that. So it's a similar change. I would say AI has a much bigger change because of the power that it has to make things more efficient. And filmmaking in audio, whether it's, filmmaking audio or music audio or like, music production, those are very inefficient processes and they're very creative processes. So if a producer, meaning somebody who's in charge of the finances of a project, if they can find a way to shave off 40% of labor costs, they're likely going to do it. Unless, there's kind of the artisanal practices of, well, no, but we want the creatives. And I'm all for that. Like, yeah, the creative mind of a human being it's never going to be beat by a computer. But some of the more technical things are already beat by a computer. They're already happening. So to just be like, well, I'm safe, you're not safe. You are at risk of being replaced. So how do we make ourselves irreplaceable? That's something we're going to talk about too. House of Jen, for me, it's an ethical question. A lot of talent have no AI writers in their contract. So I question if using it even for cleanup can lead to voice cloning due to how the TOS is worded. Sure. Especially with web-based products. Yeah, that's something to consider as well. So let's talk. I don't have anybody that's trying to join the stream right now, so I will keep rambling. Let's talk a little bit about kind of where AI is at, what's happening right now with AI in audio, especially audio post-production, how it's being used. And then we're going to look forward a little bit to see, oh, we got somebody. Let me put my headphones on, and I probably need to turn them down, actually. All right. Let me see who we've got here. Setup, mixer, QA. Okay. Let me pop this out real quick. And we'll see who we've got. There we go. All right, I got you on the stream. Who do we have? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Tom. Sorry, I can't see you.
No, I have video. I can turn video on if you want.
Either way.
All right, can you? Oh no, you can only see when I'm streaming, so we just won't even do video. So just pretend you can see me.
Okay. I have a virtual Tom in front of me. I'm Mike Wax.
Oh, you know what? Hold on one second. I have to set you up. Can you give me a sound check real quick?
Sure. Check. 1, 2.
Okay, I think I've got to send you to. Let me try this. Audio output destination. Let's try this. All right, can you give me a sound check?
Yep. Check. 1, 2. Hey.
And now
Hello.
I've got a huge echo, which is not good. I checked this earlier and it seemed like it worked, but let me just. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, and I can hear you, but I also have a tiny bit of echo there. Let's see, audio settings. Echo cancellation. Let's turn that off. One more sound check, please.
Hello. Pigs in space.
All right, we'll just roll with that. That's better. So let me go back here. And all right, so how are you seeing AI used, and what are you seeing as far as like the future?
So I work a lot in like web-based video, a lot of like testimonials, advertisements, commercials, stuff like that. And it's being introduced so quickly and so rapidly. One of the things, excuse me, sorry, I have really bad allergies right now, so I apologize. But one big thing that I'm seeing a lot is we have a team of editors. I'm the only audio engineer for my whole department. And so we have like 15 editors. And to speed things up, we'll have the editors do everything. So they're doing the edit, but then they're just doing the mix as well, and then color, and then final delivery. So they're skipping sending out to audio to avoid round trips and to avoid edits and notes and all this stuff. So it all just stays with one person. They're like a super editor, I guess you could say. But one thing I am noticing is when we let the editors do that, the product always turns out worse. Not to like bash any video editors on audio mixing, but that's kind of what we've been seeing. And we're using AI a lot in voice replacement or voice cloning when we have client or people's permissions and stuff like that. And that part has been a lifesaver. And then on my side, obviously like the noise reduction tools, the cleanup tools, things like that. There have been times when they've really saved my butt for a mix when it's just a disastrous recording and it actually gets it to a point where it's tolerable. So there's a lot of good in AI. There's a lot of bad in AI. It kind of just depends on how you look at it, I think.
Yeah. And I probably have the same tools that you have as far as like, cleaning stuff up and everything. And I'm starting to see video editors use that, like the same tools that I have. So it's kind of like, if I can see their wheels turning in their head, like, well, why do I need Tom then?
Yeah. And there has been a little bit of a battle for me to say, hey, just send it to me. I'll take care of it. You don't have to put extra stuff on your plate. But the tools are so easily available. And most of them are pretty affordable now, like 100, $200 to get really, really good, plugins and software. So sometimes it can be a battle, but you just got to keep pushing and don't be afraid to be familiar and get yourself familiar with the AI tools, 11 Labs or Lala or, DX Revive or Hush or whatever your flavor is. Be as familiar with it as possible, because from my experience, even though these tools are available to everybody, if you know how to use the AI tools with your ear, then it's still going to turn out better than if somebody that's just, we'll just, full blast, 100% reduction, process, send out. It's not going to sound as good as if, a professional audio mixer is listening to it and say, well, that's a little too much processing, or let's dial it back and then I'll clean it up in RX or whatever it is,
Yeah, definitely. So do you have like a website or anything you want to, since you're gracing us with your presence on the stream, do you have anything you want to promote?
I don't have a website, unfortunately. It's kind of on my to-do list. Not really. I did finish my first full mix indie film a couple months ago, which is pretty cool. It's already out on DVD. It's going to be coming out and streaming in like maybe a few months. It's called Sorority of the Damned. It was a disaster of a project, but it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of things, and a lot of things from your videos helped me with fixing up a lot of the nastiness from that film. So thank you, and thanks to the community. So that's kind of it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the stream. It's always nice to have somebody, that's not me to talk to. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate it, man.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Cool. That was great. It's really nice to hear other people's perspectives on this, because, I'm me. So I have my limited scope of perspective, and then it's just great. Like, I know it's kind of maybe people would think it's a negative topic. It's a little scary, but it's really not. I mean, it's just something that, we have to deal with. We've got some more questions here in the chat. Yeah, sorry. I mean, all this stuff is live, so it's like, I don't have anybody helping me. So it's me bringing people on and figuring out audio stuff kind of live. So thank you guys for your patience. Do you use any AI tools in your work, like to speed things up? Maybe some automations before you polish everything by hand. So well, I guess I use a lot of tools to speed up my workflow. One of them is Matchbox for conforms. It's not AI. It's just a smart software that automatically conforms material, because in TV especially, we end up working on projects that aren't done editing, but they still want us to start. So we start dialogue editing and sound effects editing, and then another version comes through, and we have to scramble to kind of like, match their new picture. So Matchbox is something that's really sped things up. There are other AI tools. There's DX Assist and a couple other tools that are AI based, and there's a lot of noise reduction that's AI based. And I do use them because AI can do certain things that is just it's not possible to do with standard tools. And I'm not talking so much about generative AI where it's creating stuff, because that stuff always sounds a little fake to me. It hasn't quite reached the quality level of like my sound library. If I were to use an AI generated sound effect, it's not going to have the same texture and detail that a well-recorded sound is going to have. Similar with AI generated dialogue, it's going to have kind of a something, that it's like, it bends your ear wrong and you're like, that's AI. But it's getting really good. It's getting really close. And some of the voice cloning software that I've seen, like 11 Labs, it's really well done. And it is already being used in post-production. 11 Labs is being used in post-production to clone people's voices. And I'm not going to say which projects it's being used on, but it's being used. And I know it firsthand, I know it secondhand, I know it thirdhand. So AI is already being used. And the people who learn how to use it are the ones that are probably going to have longer careers than the people who are just like, nope, no AI, not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. No way. It's okay to be anti-AI. I'm not telling you to embrace something that is scary to you and that is threatening your job. But the people who do know how to use it, and they use it correctly, in other words, they use it to do the impossible, or save something that can't be saved with standard tools, those people will end up having probably a longer career than the people who are just ostrich, head in the sand. I don't want to think about AI. So which do you want to be? Do you want to be the scared person that gets passed by, the person that is selling horseshoes when the automobile comes out? Do you want to be the person that is a candle maker when the electric light comes out? Or do you want to be the person that is, selling light bulbs or, making carburetors for cars? You probably want to be on top and a little bit ahead of the curve. So that's all I'm saying. So let's see, we got some comments here. Just used 11 Labs on a project today. A client recorded their website, and then 4 weeks after they changed the website, instead of going back out for a reshoot or have him on his phone, we did voice cloning. Yeah, so it's being used already. You have to accept, Zahir says we have to accept AI and work with it. I agree 100%. At the same time, I respect the history of Hollywood and the history of filmmaking, and especially audio post. There's a cool doc I'm watching right now called I Know That Voice, and it's about voiceover actors. And it's crazy seeing these people who, I've edited hundreds of their voiceover lines, like Kath Soucie or, Nolan, how was it? Steve Bloom, Nolan North or Peter North, I forget. One of those guys is a different kind of content. But like that, like history of sound editing and voiceover and sound mixing, it's so rich, and it's sad that it is changing, but it's going to change. So there's no like, as much as I would love to go back to, the 1940s when everybody smoked cigarettes and we were all prosperous after World War II, we're not. The genie's out of the bottle. So, you can be there and embrace it, or you can try to, hold out as long as you can, which I think is going to be about 5 years, and then it's going to be done. So, yeah. Let's see, other comments. We don't have any other comments, which is totally fine. Let me look at my notes real quick, just so we're on track. I talked a little bit about the Will Smith spaghetti video. Like, that's the thumbnail for this stream. That's a great example of kind of the progress that's been made. And how AI is shifting our day to day. This is a good topic. So let's talk specifically about how AI is affecting each kind of job and audio post. Let's start with the first one to be on the chopping block, which is ADR. ADR, we do so little ADR now compared to 10 years ago, 5 years ago, probably 20 years ago was a lot. When I first started in the industry in like 2008, there was a lot of ADR done because, you have generators, wind machines, rain machines, traffic noise, and Cedar was basically it for noise reduction. It was the top. It still sounds the best. That's why I have the affiliate link, because it's still the best sounding real-time noise reduction. But we have so many more tools now than Cedar. We have tools that can regenerate frequencies that we didn't have 5 years ago. We have tools that can separate the noise from the voice, like Hush Pro, which uses machine learning and models to extract voices from noisy, impossibly noisy clips. So all those tools are making it to where we have less ADR to do. So ADR mixers, recordists, ADR editors, studios that specialize in recording ADR, they are already feeling the squeeze from AI. There's less ADR being shot right now. We call it shot, not recorded. I don't know why. And then you also have Loop Group, which is a generative ADR where you're like, Loop Group is basically, some people would call it Walla Group. It's where you have a scene with background characters, with extras, and, the AD, the first AD or second, usually second AD tells them, just mouth, don't say anything, just do that. And we're going to dub in, Loop Group to cover your peas and carrots lip flap. So Loop Group it's like usually 5 or 6 guys and gals get in a room or separate rooms sometimes and mime, the lips of the background actors. They will also cover things like a bad guy gets shot and goes, ah, they are the effort of the bad guy. They'll do all kinds of background voices. With something like 11 Labs, I can see, right now 11 Labs is used to generate one voice, but they have API with hooks in it. A person could make a plugin that prompts with AI, prompts 11 Labs and says, generate me a group of 6 characters, 3 men, 3 women, talking in Farsi about, American incursions into Iran, like something like that, and it'll pick 3 boys and 3 girls and generate the Walla for you. And now you have a Walla track. How far away from that? 2 years maybe. So Walla Group, Loop Group, ADR recording, first on the chopping block. No question about that. Next on the chopping block is probably going to be Foley, because what is Foley being used for? It's being used to replace or supplement the production track. Like if there's footsteps in the production sound, but the people are talking, when you do the M&E, the footsteps are going to be missing. Well, or maybe the footsteps are low, like they're there, but they're really low because the boom is pointed at the actor's mouth or the lavalier is up by their mouth. It's not pointed at their feet. With the ability to separate the noise from the voice, the noise will give you background ambience. It's going to give you footsteps. It's going to give you movement. So if you can just strip the voice out, why do you need Foley? Why replace all that stuff? It's the real sound. It's already synced up. Nobody needs to edit it, record it, perform it. I have the Foley I need for a scene in the production track. And also maybe there's then an enhanced focus in recording that stuff well for, for the AI to grab onto. Maybe the boom op has a second boom pointing at their feet. Who knows? Or a lav mic on each leg. You could do so many different things with it. But Foley, I think, is second. Foley recordist, Foley artists are going to be, I think, second replaced, maybe 7 years out. It's already easy to strip out the voice and just have the noise. Hush Pro does a great job of it. There's an Acon Digital dialogue extract that does it really well. The Waves one, maybe it could. I demoed it and I didn't really get along with it, so I don't use it. But Foley, that's going to be the second thing that's knocked out. Another thing that's going to get knocked out is music. Composers. You can prompt an AI like Suno. Remind me of the other one. There's a couple other ones. But you can prompt an AI and say, give me a cinematic, guitar-driven, atmospheric score that is anthemic, a little bit sad, and has a little bit of Zimmer in there. And it'll give you something that is going to be different every time you prompt it. But maybe 1 out of every 5 is like, whoa, this is really good. So I've demoed some of those. Again, they work pretty well. And they're not quite, it's never going to be the same as a real musician. But for low budget stuff, who cares? It's going to save them 10 grand on hiring a composer for a film. Maybe they'll spend $500 on AI. What's the producer going to pick? If they're just pinching pennies, they're going to go for the AI. So that's another thing to maybe talk about is the different strata of filmmaking. Like you have your micro budget, you have low budget, you have, independent but still good budgets, maybe $5 to $25 million. Then you have like real movies, mid-range movies, and then you have blockbusters. Well, the blockbusters are always going to go after the top talent. They want the maximum quality, and they will spend 90% of their budget on that 10% of extra quality. They spare no expense, as Hammond would say in Jurassic Park. So they're going to hire the top talent in Hollywood. They want the best of everything. So that level is going to, be less affected by AI. AI will be used to get tasks done, but it's not going to replace the talent. Who are those people at the top of their career? They're 10 years away from retirement. So yeah, they're not worried. They're set. They can coast to the finish line. The lower and mid budget are the ones who are going to really lean into AI. So if you're working on indie stuff, if you're independent freelance, like that's where it's really important to harness AI and figure out maybe a pivot of how you can use it versus just, well, I got my skills and I can rest on my laurels. So yeah, let's see. Got some comments here. Soundly has their text-to-speech feature. Mark Kilburn says, what I doubt about is things like Foley. Can it do the really emotive stuff? That is really tough. Yeah. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Let's make AI to replace those producers' EPs. I don't think that's going to happen. Because all that stuff is about relationships. And really the top talent, like, the top sound designers, supervising sound editors, re-recording mixers, it's all about the relationships. So who is, if you have a Tom Hanks movie, is that going to be, are they going to be using AI for the sound design? No, of course not. They're going to have the top sound designer in the land to do that stuff. They're going to have the top dialogue editors, top ADR editors. The quality is so important that like AI is going to affect them last. But those projects, there's a couple every year and that's it. Mr. Nelson says, I don't think you can teach an AI taste. It even steals from other artists, which is why for creative stuff, a human touch will always be better than AI slop. I agree. However, with the AI slop, who cares? Does the consumer care if it's AI slop? I would say 90% of people don't care. They just want something to watch. They want something that is interesting, that distracts them from their life. So 10%, the real connoisseurs of film or TV or whatever, art, music, yeah, they care. They're going to hear the difference. But the other 90%, the general public, they don't care. They just want something. They want something to zone out. They want something to distract them from their crappy job. So AI is going to be just a content mill, I think, for those people. And then, yeah, you have like the tentpole stuff where it's like, yeah, this stuff is, they still use AI on the tentpole stuff, but it's used as a tool instead of a human replacement. Mike Wax says, do you see AI affecting the union? There's so many things affecting the union right now. There's like, not really quite enough work to go around, and there's like economic change. There's so many things affecting post-production. It's really, well, just filmmaking in general, or the entertainment industry is being affected hugely by, the decrease in production from post-COVID levels, budgetary constraints. Runaway production is a huge one. Like there's so many shows filming in Scotland, Ireland, South Africa, Mexico, maybe not South America, Canada. Canada's a big one. They used to film in the US. We would have people shooting in LA, Vegas, New York, Cincinnati, Chicago, and they're just not, they're cheating European cities for American ones. So it's all because of the money. So if the producers are willing to flee the US to save a couple bucks on production, what are they going to do with post-production? They're going to be making the same decisions. They're going to be looking for ways to cut costs. Do you see AI affecting the union? Probably worth noting that MPSC banned generative AI. Yeah, if you're going after a Golden Reel Award from the MPSC, then yeah, don't use generative AI. But producers are going to use it. AI music like Suno have one big problem. It can give you wonderful some kind of music, but it's quite impossible to make it generate something specific, like change chorus, remove drums. Yeah, currently, the AI tools, one of the big problems they have is the randomness of the neural net process, machine learning. You can't well, actually you can now. It's starting to get to where you can ask for versions and stems and things like, stuff that is actually useful. Like if you told a composer, I really like this, but can you make it in E flat instead of C? Or can you change the format? AI really struggles with that right now, but it's starting to not. And some of the video, I forget what the video one is, that people are using to generate videos, especially viral videos, but it's starting to incorporate scenes, characters, and wardrobe, where you can say, this character needs to be consistent from this shot to this shot. Like, don't change their shirt. Don't go from 5 fingers to 6 fingers. AI is starting to be able to carry things through the process. And that is a big change, to be able to do that, like be consistent and understand characters and things like that. Yeah, so really good. I really appreciate the comments on the stream. This is kind of helping drive stuff. Let me just look at my notes real quick. Okay, we talked about dialogue editors. We kind of got off topic a little bit. Sound designers are probably, we were going through the list of like who's on the chopping block. So it was ADR, Foley. Next is dialogue editors. That's me. A little less than half my income during a year comes from dialogue editing. So I'm on the chopping block. Dialogue editing, if the editor can just run their guide track through Adobe Enhance or, Hush and get a good sounding dialogue stem, why do they need a dialogue editor? Dialogue editors are on the chopping block. And it's sad because I love editing dialogue. I've learned so much about it. And I feel like I'm really, in the pocket on dialogue editing. But I also see a future where my job is gone. And it's sad, but it's true. It's going to happen. So dialogue editing is going to, I think, fall after Foley. Then sound design is probably pretty safe. I would say sound design is probably even safer than mixing. There are some AI sound effects generators, but where AI really struggles is seeing a video and putting the right sound in and syncing it up and having it, be punchy, and like the generative processes kind of smear transients and clarity, and you get something that is a little, artifacty and washy sounding. Eventually it won't. Eventually it's going to understand phase relationships and transient and tonal shifts and Doppler and modulation and all that stuff. But currently it kind of just like poops on the sound. It's like, here you go. Here's the sound. So sound designers are probably a lot more safe than dialogue editors, and especially ADR and Foley. But eventually AI is going to catch up with that and be able to say, oh, you want a sad sound for this. You want a yellow sound. You want something that is evocative of this emotion. And it's going to, through the course of learning the connections between all this stuff, pick the right sound from a library or generate the right sound, based on what it has learned from other things. So that's coming, but, I think that's further out, probably at least 5 years, if not 10 years. So sound designers are going to, be pretty safe for a while. Mixers right now, like, what is it? DaVinci has an audio assistant and has AI mixing, and I haven't really had time to play with it. As soon as I'm done with this show I'm working on, I will. But the fact that it's even included in the software means that there's some use for it. And I'm sure, industrials and ads and stuff like that, like they probably are using the AI audio assistant, and they're using some kind of, mix assistant to get things close. So that type of thing where you're not generating sounds and you're just reacting and you're cleaning things and you're panning things to match something that's on screen, probably, I would say before sound design, that's going to become a bigger issue. I think first it's going to be used for the stuff nobody likes to do, like painstakingly panning a sound to match the visual, or, EQing stuff. Oh, look, we got somebody coming on my stream all of a sudden. my, that's hilarious. My wife, I told her like every Tuesday from 8 to 9, I do my stream, and she is super shy, and she just walked in, which is great. I was hoping to get her one of these days, and I got her. So yeah, mixing I think is going to be something that falls before sound design, but it's going to be used first for the tedious, bring in all the tracks from the sound editors and put stuff in my template on the right tracks. Those tools, like people are already making those tools right now. So first that's going to go, okay, well now you've cut an assistant out of the picture. The next thing is, pre-dubbing stuff. And then the next thing is taking client notes. So it's, I don't like to say slippery slope, but we're on the path to, AI being used as a utility. Eventually it's going to be used, I think, to replace the creative talent. And it's sad, but and it's a ways out, but I think the time is definitely coming. Okay, so let's go through some more comments here. Mark says, if the majority of the audience doesn't care, then AI will be able to do the job. Yep. Darden Sopa says, I just found your account and I've been watching your post-production tutorials. But now talking about AI, do you think it's too late to start? I don't. And one of the reasons for that is AI can't love what it does. And I love what I do. And I know a lot of you do. It might be a job, but it's a job you love. And if you love doing something, who cares if a computer can do it too? You're just doing it because you love it, So I try not to talk anybody out of pursuing audio post-production because it is very satisfying. And the skills are always going to be needed. And there's things that you're going to be able to do that a machine will never be able to do. So be confident in that, like it's not just skill, there's a lot of taste. Somebody earlier said you can't teach an AI taste. And I guess I would kind of agree with that. But really, if you're doing this because you love it, don't worry about AI. Like learn it, learn how to use it and everything, but don't be afraid of what's going to happen. Just kind of, roll with the punches and use it to the best of your ability. So really good question. Do you think it's pointless now to learn RX and all that stuff to become a dialogue editor? Nope, I don't. Again, if you like what you do, and like we've got time, there's time. It's going to take a while for AI to catch up. Mark says with mixers, at least on higher level stuff, a big part of the job is relationship management with the director. So I suspect that will give them some amount of longevity. Exactly, Mark. This business is all about relationships. And so Marty Scorsese is not going to want an AI mixer on his project. And like, it's going to be like that. People have these relationships. So that is another thing you can do to give yourself some armor against AI is really work on networking, work on your skills, but also work on who you're working with and pick people who are going to make your career last longer. Pick the people who really value your creative input on things. And unfortunately, those tend to not be the cheapskates. So the producers who are always, poor mouthing and I don't know if we can afford your day rate on this and can you do us a favor? They're the ones who are going to go for AI. Don't be afraid to get rid of those clients because they're going to be the first ones to replace you, not the ones who are saying, hey, let's pay you a fair rate. I really value your input on this. Those are the ones who will stick through with you and, actually probably ask you to not touch AI on their projects. Do you think there will ever be laws regulating the use of AI? Possibly, but, there's so much money to be made with AI. I don't think the people with the deeper pockets are going to be able to lobby for making AI completely unrestricted. They have so much money to make because they're the ones building the tools that, they're going to lobby the Congress, legislatures, parliament, whatever, and say, no, here's $1 million. Please don't regulate AI. Here's $2 million. Please don't regulate AI. So it's not really, I think hoping for that, hoping for a levee to hold back AI. No, the levee's going to break. And when the levee breaks, well, you know how the song goes. Will AI give more incentive to become more of a jack of all post trades? That's a good question. I think so. Yeah. So that's a good pivot, is like, well, so who is going to survive? The people who I think know how to use the AI tools and can be more managerial, and understand the big picture process, they will have a longer career because they'll be able to use the AI tools in conjunction with their skills to kind of bridge the gap from doing everything by hand with no AI to now it's all AI. You're going to be able to bridge that gap. Unfortunately, it also feeds into the development of AI when you do that. Every time you touch an AI tool, it's going to get smarter. It's going to get faster. It's going to get stronger. And I don't know if you've seen Terminator, but that could maybe lead down a little bit of a scary road. So good question. Mark says, 100% my career is totally built on my relationships. I do have to be good enough. But my relationships over 20 years have opened every door for me. Yeah, it's the same for me. And you do have to have some skills, but really it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that can be kind of a double-edged sword because there are, I think, a lot of people who are okay at what they do, but they're in very high positions because of just their social skills, and that's totally fine. But it kind of does maybe feed into the fact that the industry has a lot of nepotism, which is maybe not great for making the actual projects better. But that's just kind of how it is, it's part of the game. Okay, talking about AI, what about location mixer? Do they have to be scared? I don't think anybody has to be scared. I think you just have to be aware and concerned. And a production sound mixer, if a person can just take a camera audio track and run it through an AI and now it sounds like Hollywood, dialogue, then yeah, why use a production sound mixer? But a lot of these tools, you need to feed them pretty good material. And especially when it comes to capturing the nuances of an actor's performance, nothing is going to replicate like an AI. Well, I mean, eventually maybe it will, but it's going to be the hardest thing to get the subtleties that those connoisseurs can pick up, not the 90% of just the general population, but the real, the directors and filmmakers, the little details have to be captured. So production sound mixer, I think, is pretty safe for a while. Although I've heard horror stories of commercials, they replace everything with AI voiceover and AI ADR, and they just run a crappy camera audio track through it, and they're fine with it. So that's maybe something else to talk about, is like kind of which layers of the industry are going to be affected the worst. Ads are obviously already using a lot of AI. I've seen stuff where I'm like watching it and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this little testimonials is AI generated. So ads are kind of the lowest, level of production. There's a ton of them out there. They're going to use AI first. Then it's going to be like, YouTube stuff, web stuff. Then it's going to be like low budget features, low budget TV. And then, like I said, the top tier tentpole stuff is going to be last. So yeah. Okay. Other questions. Have you seen Alphonic? I've heard they can really speed up editing without sacrificing quality. Haven't checked it out. There's a lot of tools I haven't checked out. Okay, let me go back through my notes here. Okay, yeah, this is we kind of touched on this a little bit about like, the people, the jack of all trades who can use AI versus the specialist who only knows how to do things by hand. And man, what's a good analogy for this? Yeah, so if you understand the whole process of audio post and you understand how AI can fit into it, it's likely you would be tapped by a company to help them finish a film. Maybe the budget isn't very great, so you're really using AI to save money. So if you go that route, the downside is you might think you're taking work away from somebody. Like, well, if I use AI for this, then my buddy Bob, the dialogue editor, is not going to, he's not going to have this gig. But if the production already can't afford Bob, and there's no chance of him, like, you can't talk them into spending more for Bob, do you want to walk away from that opportunity to work out of a moral, righteousness and say, no, you're going to use AI, I'm not going to do this? Or do you want to say, well, I can learn the AI and I can be a part of this at the expense of knowing that the lower people on the ladder are going to get cut out? That I can't answer for you. Like, every person has to think of their threshold for that stuff. So yeah, it's really a personal decision to make. Me, I am cautiously interested in AI. I'm cautiously optimistic about what it could do for a person's career, especially knowing what's happening with the industry right now, with the kind of lack of work and the slowdown over the past, it's been 3 years now. So instead of being loyal to that, loyal to something that doesn't care if you sink or swim, loyal to a really cutthroat industry, am I loyal to that, or am I more interested in being like, a coyote that can kind of survive and figure out my own path? I would say I'm more interested in surviving versus being loyal to something that really, I appreciate the work and I appreciate the process and the history of it, but the industry does not give a damn about me. It doesn't care if I drop out. It doesn't care if I pay my mortgage. It doesn't care if I put food on the table. It really only cares about feeding the machine. And so, I don't feel loyal to that at all. Okay. Sorry about that diatribe. We don't have any other comments, which is great. So let's talk more about your value and how AI can help or hurt your value. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what you do. Like, you could be a VFX person, picture editor, sound editor, composer, writer, digital artist. Your value is, if it's just in your output, then a machine is going to probably John Henry your ass and beat your output. That's just how it is. There's not guys out pounding, railroad spikes in for 100 miles of railroad track. That's all done by machines. So you have to look at the value. Your value is more than just your work and what you put out, and it really needs to be as a person. And that's where those relationships come into play. So how can you use AI to increase your value? I would say by learning to use the tools that are out there, by keeping abreast of the changes that are happening, and by even maybe considering what could you develop. AI can help you develop things. So if you have a tool that you could build that fixes a pain point for somebody, that's a way you can stay ahead of the curve. And so maybe think about that. What are some things that annoy you? What are some friction points you can fix with AI? Those are all things that are, if you can't build them and they already exist and you can buy them, they're going to help you become more efficient and be able to focus more on the creative side of your work and focus more on relationships and spend less time just looking at a screen, or doing whatever. Like, you're going to be able to pull your head out of your work a little bit and kind of look around. So it's really going to benefit multitaskers. And people who can kind of manage processes. The people who are just grunts, they're just infantry. They're just down in the trenches with their head down, tapping away at a Kensington trackball and a keyboard or a mixer. It's going to be difficult, and there's going to be some growing pains. So just keep that in mind. Some people excel at that. They excel when they're just left to their work and they don't have to think about too much. But that's kind of what AI is good at. So maybe think about learning, a little bit of variety and a little bit of generalization, really, is what I'm talking about. So what do you think about vocals, tuning, and Melodyne? Have you heard some of the vocals that are generated from like Suno and other things? Like they still sound kind of digital, but they're getting really good And yeah, I think entering the industry as like a music producer or singer right now would be really scary. Unless you're really good live, which most of them aren't. Most of them suck live. They can't hold a pitch. They're run out of breath. They got to do 2 lines at a time. Like, live stuff is going to be pretty resilient. And actually, that's something that we haven't talked about. Live sound for like concerts, plays, something where you can't replace the human. That stuff's going to continue. Like I don't think we're going to be watching holograms unless it's like bringing a dead guy back like Tupac. So live stuff is going to be very resilient. And in fact, I think that market's going to grow because as AI generates more stuff, there's going to be a real hunger for human interaction and human art and seeing it live, seeing the real deal. So that's maybe something else. Think about learning an instrument, learning how to sing, learning how to do live sound if you haven't already. That might be a good pivot as well. Let's see. Other things in my outline here. Yeah, I think we've covered quite a bit. I'll go back kind of through the comments and see if there's anything I didn't. If you guys have any closing thoughts on AI, please drop them in the live chat, or if you're watching a replay, drop a comment. I try to read all of them and respond to the ones that need to be responded to. And I tried to not be, Debbie Downer about this and scare you guys, but it's such an important topic to cover that I think we're going to continue to discuss this on my channel because it is a threat and opportunity, and just kind of blindly looking away from it does not help. You have to be aware of it, and you have to look it in the eye and size it up and kind of grab it by the throat and say, no, here's what I'm going to do to deal with you. So that's kind of what today's been about. Any other, let's see, Zoe says, could you teach on how to build a resume with this new age of audio coming up? Really depends on what you want to do. Like, do you want to develop a tool? Do you want to be a creative collaborator? So I would say really focus on the value you provide to a client or potential client or employer, and be very clear about what that value is. Value yourself as more than just a tool to be plugged into a machine, because that's really what AI is. AI is a tool, and it's a machine that's going to do work for people. So as a human being, your value is so much more than that. It's your personality, it's your heart, it's your spirit, it's your communication. So work on those skills just as much as dialogue editing or sound design or picture editing or VFX. Work on the human skills that you have that are irreplaceable. And that's going to set you up really well it's going to set you up for success, not just in audio, but just life in general. So yeah, I think that's a good piece of closing advice. Yeah, just focus on your value as a human being instead of a drone, worker. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me know your concerns about AI, or maybe some of the tools you use that are artificial intelligence or machine learning or LLM based, because I try to stay on top of that stuff. And it's a topic we will end up coming back to. I'm also going to keep working on these audio post modules. Right now, I just have audio post module 1, which is, a couple hours. You get a certificate, and it kind of gives you the basics of like an overview of post-production. And you also get a free practice film. So I included this free with the course, and it's going to be free with all the courses, because that way, not everybody has something to work on. If you do, great. If you don't, there it is. It's right there. So feel free to check that out, and stay tuned. I'll have an edited video. Hopefully, I haven't cut it together yet, but I recorded it on Thursday of this week, and then next week, Tuesday, I try to stream Tuesday at 8 a.m. from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time every week, do my best. And we're going to talk about one of the members asked about loudness, which I've covered a lot, but specifically I'm going to be talking about like how to hit loudness targets in one session for multiple platforms. So web and, streaming, for example, in one without having two separate mixes. So that's a great topic to cover. Whoever suggested that, thank you so much. And anybody else who has a topic they want covered, drop a comment, email me. If you're a member, hit up our Discord, and I will do my best. I try to tailor stuff to what you guys want. So everybody who tuned in or is going to tune in on the replay, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Special thank you to channel members. Thanks for Mike for coming on the stream. That was really cool to talk to him. And I'll see you guys next week. Till then, you know what I'm going to say. Take care.